Today we are talking fire pits, and specifically the Brio X Series 19. Now, full disclosure, Brio did send me this fire pit free of charge. I'm very thankful for that, but they didn't give me any stipulations and they have no creative control over this review whatsoever. Now, because they did send it to me for free and I didn't have to buy it, I am going to buy one, the same one, X Series 19, and give it away to you. So leave a comment in this video to enter. All of the details will be in the description, and you can get an additional entry by going over to my Instagram. Now, it just so happens that a friend of mine has a Solo Stove bonfire, which is essentially Solo Stove's version of the Brio X Series 19. Very similar. So let me talk about some of the similarities and some of the differences between the two. The X Series 19 weighs in at 56 pounds. It's made out of stainless steel. It's got a core tin steel outside, so you're gonna get that patina as it oxidizes. It looks really nice, very attractive, but a little bit heavier than the Solo Stove. The Solo Stove, also made out of stainless steel, and it weighs in only at 20 pounds. Now, I've done 4 or 5 comparison tests so far. Let me just talk about these smokeless fire pits real quick. So I compared my traditional fire pit versus the two smokeless. Use a little bit of wet wood so we get exaggerated smoke, and you can see the difference between the traditional fire pit and these smokeless fire pits. Once the smokeless gets going, it takes about 20 minutes. They greatly reduce the amount of smoke coming out of those fire pits versus the traditional. Now, one of the main critiques of the smokeless is that they lose a majority of their heat upwards. So you're not gonna get a ton of outward heat. So if you're in a really cold climate, you might wanna be thinking about that. Not gonna give you a ton of radiant heat. Now, in my comparisons that I did between the Solo Stove and the Brio, I did notice a few things. One, it seemed that the Solo Stove was a little bit easier to light. Like, it almost didn't matter how I built the fire, it would get up and get going. The Brio, sometimes it didn't matter how I lit it, it would light up fine, and sometimes I kind of had to go back a little bit, add a little more kindling, and it would light up just fine. Could totally be that I have no clue how to make a fire. That is not outside the realm of possibility, so keep that in mind. But once they got going, there was really no difference to me in the actual fires themselves, and the amount of smoke looked almost identical between the two. Now, there were some differences. One, the Solo Stove, the sides of the Solo Stove only get up to about 170 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what I was registering on my infrared thermometer. The Brio, on the other hand, gets up between 450 and 500 degrees Fahrenheit on the outside. Some might see that as a negative as far as like being dangerous or whatnot. I wouldn't touch any fire pit. Let's see. That's hotter than 90 degrees for sure, but not too hot. You should never touch a fire pit. That doesn't really factor in for me. The reason I see it as a plus is because you'll actually get a little bit of radiant heat off of that Brio. So these fire pits, like I said, the critique is all the heat goes upwards. Well, the Brio is actually gonna radiate a little bit of heat, which could be nice if you're sitting around it. Because I kind of noticed with the Solo Stove specifically that you really need to be standing and kind of close to be able to really feel that heat on a cold night. The Brio also gets much hotter on the underside of the fire pit versus the Solo Stove, so I would be careful really for both fire pits of where you're gonna place these. I put my Brio out into the grass, did a fire, came out the next day, had a nice brown circle in the grass from where that fire was. Also, don't ever put these fire pits on decks. I know I did in my video, but please don't do that, or at least get some bricks or cinder blocks to go under them to protect so that you don't light your deck on fire. The other thing that I noticed is that the Solo Stove, because it actually, I think, has better airflow, it goes through fuel a lot faster. So I was using the same type of wood, the same amount of wood in all of my tests, and the Solo Stove consistently would burn through the wood quicker. All right, this is test number, I think, 3. The Solo Stove definitely goes through wood faster. It's more efficient burn. There's a lot more oxygen going through there. I'm registering 1500 degrees in the Brio. I'm getting 14 to 1600 in the Solo Stove. So I believe that your fuel is gonna last a little bit longer in this, but it still gets plenty hot. And I don't have any pants on, and it was warming my legs slightly. Not gonna get that at all on the Solo Stove. All that heat's gonna go up, get a little bit on the Brio. So let me go ahead and show you each grill real quick and how much wood's actually left left. Same amount of wood was put in, and you'll see that the Solo Stove burned through way more. So this is the Brio. You can still see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 logs in there. And then you go over to the Solo Stove, and it's like some of them are gone. You can only definitely see 2 full logs that were in here, and then pieces of 3 others. Keep in mind that both of these go through significantly more fuel than just a standard fire pit. Because they've got so much airflow going through them, they're gonna go through a lot more wood than a standard fire pit, but they will be relatively smokeless. I've got temperature probes underneath each of these right now, and the Brio is registering 112 degrees underneath, and the Solo Stove is registering 57 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've only done 4 or 5 tests, so kind of take this with a grain of salt, but that's kind of what I'm seeing so far. Now let's focus on the Brio X Series 19. It has a sear plate on top, which the Solo Stove does not. Solo Stove is starting to make grills, but the Brio is specifically a fire pit with the ability to grill on it. So you can buy the Outpost grill accessory. It's all stainless steel. It's really nice. The mechanism that hooks it in to the actual fire pit is very smart, and it can be used independent of the fire pit. You can take it camping, build yourself a little fire, and you can put this grill over it. So you can use it with this stake in the ground and a regular fire, like if you're camping or something, or you can hook it into the fire pit. It's adjustable in height, which is great. So for me, I put it all the way to the top, threw some stakes on, let them slowly come up to 125, and then threw them on that searing ring. I used it to reverse sear some steaks, and it was awesome. And then I used the searing ring around the fire pit to actually sear. That thing was well over 1,000 degrees, gave an awesome, awesome sear. I really like that on the Brio. The other thing that's interesting is as the Brio heats up, that searing plate or that searing ring starts to actually bend inwards because it's heating up, and actually it causes all the grease to go into the fire instead of out around the grill. So that was kind of a nice feature as well. The grill does kind of creak a little bit. I think that's because I'm breaking mine in, but as that plate moves, it's not loud by any means, but I just want to, full disclosure, tell you everything I can about this grill. It does make a little bit of noise. I'll put that here so you can listen to it. Not bad by any means, but just letting you know. Now let's talk about cost. The Solo Stove, specifically the Bonfire, regular price $350 US. The Brio X Series 19, regular price $399. Now, one huge difference, and this is kind of a big deal to me, is that the Brio is made and manufactured in the USA, and Solo Stove is made in China. Solo Stove is also thinner, so you're getting stainless steel, but because of the weight, it's only 20 pounds versus the 56 pounds of the Brio. You're getting less metal, and you're paying about 350 bucks. The Brio, made in America, it's beefier, and you're paying about $400. Now, you could see the weight as a pro and a con. The 20-pound Solo Stove, obviously more portable, so if you're like traveling around and bringing it, obviously easier to carry. The Brio, 56 pounds, a little bit heavier, so maybe a more permanent setup for you. But the way that I was looking at it is, since it's just gonna sit out here on my deck, I don't have to worry about the Brio denting ever. Those sidewalls are really thick. The Solo Stove feels a little bit thin, and like I could dent it pretty easily, so keep that in mind. I also did just want to say that my fire pit, because it's new, it doesn't have that nice patina on the outside. That Corten steel has not oxidized yet, so that I will show you a picture of what that looks like. But mine, slowly over time, will get that nice kind of like orangish, brownish, red oxidation on the outside. Overall, I've been really impressed with the Brio X Series 19. I think it's a great fire pit, a great smokeless fire pit. Once that thing gets going, it's absolutely beautiful. The air coming out of those top holes on the inside, it looks like there's natural gas running to it or something. It's very cool. I think it's an awesome fire pit. Now, of course, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt because it was sent to me for free. But even regardless of that, I was intending on purchasing one anyways. The Solo Stove still is a great fire pit. It does an awesome job as a smokeless, and there are pros about it, but for me, I was leaning towards the Brio X Series 19 because it was made in the USA. I hope this video was helpful if you are in the market for a fire pit, specifically comparing smokeless fire pits between the Solo Stove and the Brio. Thank you so much for watching Break It Yourself. As always, don't forget to thumbs me up, but the most important thing that you can do is actually share this video. So if you know somebody who is in the market for a fire pit, go ahead and send the video to them. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.